Welcome to another edition of Adult Arts and Crafts. My name is Mary Ellen. I'm speaking to you from my kitchen for the Warren County Library. I'm hoping that I'll be able to see comments today. If you're already in the room, please let me know. I will take a look. Yes, I see that 2 people are watching. I cannot see any comments right now. I'm going to hit this button and see. Perhaps I'm not going to be able to see comments, but whatever. I'm going to go forward. I'm going to make something for you today, and I hope you join in and do this with me at some point. You don't have to do it today. You can do it anytime. And it really combines 2 things that I love. It combines recycling and taking something old that's useless, perhaps garbage, and making something beautiful out of it. Great, I do see that I can see some people watching. Thanks so much for visiting, friends. I'm so glad to see you today. Sometimes I can't see my comments, so today I'm going to try to keep up with you. I will be doing a lot on the counter, so I might miss a question. If so, don't worry, I'll circle around back at the end when it's over and I'll answer any of the questions that you have. Wow, that's great. So glad to hear someone's even watching from Ontario. That's fabulous. All right, so I'm going to get back to what I'm going to talk about today. I'm taking something that's broken and I'm making something beautiful out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down onto my table and I will show you some samples. And I'm going to show you step by step how to do this today. So you'll learn everything you need to know about doing it. Here are some samples of things that I have made, and you can see that I just fell in love with this technique and jumped right in and have made a whole bunch of pieces of jewelry right away. So I'll give you a quick walkthrough. So this one is eggshells, basically on a piece of cardboard, and it's only painted with acrylic paints, and I used markers to make these vines. So those are just regular markers of any kind, and that works just fine. If you want to do something more like this, we're talking about using alcohol ink. So I'll give you a little how-to about alcohol ink as part of this class, and maybe you've bought some and you didn't know what to do with it, so there's a really good thing that you can do with it that doesn't use much ink and has really pretty results. So the rest of these here are also based on pieces of cardboard, except for this one, which is on a box. And what I did in this case was I took one of my pressed flowers from the pressed flower class that I taught, and I stuck that right on top, and I came back and I colored in these along the edge with watercolor. So know that you can also use watercolor to color your eggs. This one was entirely done with Sharpies. There's all kinds of metallic Sharpies now, so that's what I tried out. There's a silver, there's a bronze, there's a gold, and this has no sealer on it yet, but I may put sealer on it. I may do it for you today. One of these things I'll put sealer on, and you'll see what the difference is. Again, this was just on a piece of hard cardboard that I cut out a circle. This piece has a little more detail in it that I came back with a marker to make the center of the flowers. And the blue background here was done with watercolor. So there's lots of different techniques you can use to color in your eggshells once you make them. So I'm going to go start step by step and show you how to do it. If you wanted it to look like a stained glass picture, you could paint your piece first black, and then when you put your eggshells down, the black in between would look like the leading in your stained glass. So let's take this over to the side. So the first thing you're going to do if you're going to make some eggshell art is you're going to break a few eggs, right? So breaking eggs is not a problem these days because we're all doing some extra baking. A lot of our baking's being done at home, and it's fun, and we have lots of eggshells left over when we do so. What you might not notice when you were cleaning an egg for this, you clean your egg out, and what you want to do, and this is the only really fussy thing I think you have to do, is eggs have a membrane inside that you would like to remove. If you leave the membrane on that side of the egg, the glue might stick just to the membrane and not the shell. So I'm suggesting that you remove the membrane. So I can see a little bit of membrane here. These eggs have been sitting in a bowl of water for a day, and you can see that pretty easily you can pull out the membrane and throw it away. So I will go in there and I'll feel with my hand, and I'll be able to see where the membrane still exists. Here's some more membrane, because I could feel that it was still there, and remove it. Then I would just wash this with soapy water, and I would let it dry, and then I'd have plenty of eggshells to use for this project. So there you go. Here's my eggshells. Here's some parts. So just like the rectangular ones that I showed you, I used a little piece of cardboard that I had. I have a nice, it's a thin piece of cardboard, but it's very stiff. If you don't have a good stiff cardboard, something that you might do, I did in this case, I took a lesser strength cardboard. This was just a tissue box, and I cut 2 pieces and I stuck them together. So 2 widths of a tissue box still makes a very, very hard surface. So that's an option for you. You can see that I took this cardboard and I took a lid from an Ocean Spray drink. I drew a circle around it and I cut it out. And then I'm ready to make an eggshell pendant. All right, so I'll put that on the side. And if you're going to put a jump ring to hold your to be able to string a necklace onto it and not have to add something else on the top, you want to put a hole into your cardboard at this time. So the way I put the hole in the cardboard is I would start with a needle and I'd push that through, and it's a good start to start with a needle, and then progressively you could use a bigger needle, or in this case I actually have an awl with a point on the end, and I can push that through that hole and make it quite bigger so that I know I'll be able to very easily, you see the hole now, paint it, put the eggshells on, and still be able to put a jump ring in to hang. All right? So I'm going to take one of these that I painted black because it'll be easier for you to see me put the eggshells on it. So I move that out of the way, and here are the things that you would need. I used matte Mod Podge to put the eggshells and glue them to this cardboard. You could use tacky glue. I did that as well. I'll tell you, I kind of liked using the Mod Podge because it's a little bit transparent and I could see what I was doing better than I could with the tacky glue, but maybe even a regular Elmer's would be fine as well. And if in terms of the black paint that I put on the cardboard, it was just a regular folk art acrylic. It was nothing special. I'm also going to be making a box that's black, so I started with a black, so I can also put my eggshells on the top. So it's an idea for something you might want to make. So I put a little bit of Mod Podge in this dish so you can see what I'm doing. And I just got a little paintbrush, nothing fancy. And I'm going to start by adding some Mod Podge to this rectangle. I'll just lay this down on the side, and I'm going to pick up a piece of my egg. And wait till you see how simple this action is. I'm going to just take a smaller piece just so it's a smaller bite. I'm going to take this and I'm going to push it down flat because the eggs, of course, have a curve to them, and when you push them down, they break, and then as they break, you can just separate them. Now, at this point, you might want to use a toothpick. I happen to like to use a needle because I'm a sewer and I have lots of needles here, and a nice thick needle is very comfortable in my hand.
So you can get as fussy as you like in pushing these pieces around, but you really don't have to be. It kind of looks nice if they're of different sizes, some of them smaller, some of them larger. And you can see I just poked the needle to break one that I thought was a little bit big. And leave a little space in between, because that's what's going to cause the interest, that you're going to see this stained glass look, and you're going to now, it will look like a mosaic rather than looking like fully white. If you wanted something that was just white, you could have just painted the whole thing white. But what we want to see is we want to see the contrast, because you know, in most art, it's the contrast that is the most beautiful thing. Now, isn't this an unusual thing? It's not something you see every day, but as you can see, it looks like it's a very difficult thing to do, but it actually is not. It's kind of a little bit of a meditation to sit down and do this. And what I like to do is just continue to add some of the Mod Podge. Now, say you had a big space. There's a big space right there, and you needed to add something to it. I would suggest breaking up some pieces of your shell, putting a little bit of Mod Podge on the end of your, whether it's your toothpick or your needle, and you could pick it up and you could just lay it down where you wanted it. You see how easy that is? So I'm going to break another piece off. I'm going to pick it up and I'm just going to lay it down. So sometimes you have a tiny little spot where you want to put one, and as long as there's a little bit of Mod Podge on the end of your toothpick, you can get into that spot. There's one right there. Look at how tight that is. But also the beauty part of the Mod Podge is it stays wet for a while, and you can continue to move things around until you like their placement. All right, you see what I'm doing? Now I'm going to try to see, I'm going to bring the camera up for a second so I can see if there are any questions. I'm not seeing any, let's see. Okay. Should do more after 3 so more kids can do it. Well, I'll tell you, this video will remain on our Facebook page indefinitely. So Landry asked if I could do this after 3 o'clock. All of my programs will remain on Facebook, and you can just look under videos and you can find them. And know that we also go onto YouTube with them. A couple of days after the class is over, my classes will always turn up on YouTube. So you can search the playlist of Warren County Library and you can find them. So what I would do at this point is continue until the piece is covered. And I'll just pick one up here. I have a couple here of rectangles that were done, and they're dry. And it usually takes, it might take a couple hours for it to dry. But you can see I avoided the hole because I know I want that hole to be able to accept a jump ring at some point. And it's fine to let the edges of the egg stand out around the edge. And because now that it's dry, I simply can take a pair of scissors and I can cut them off. So I hope you can see here that there are some pieces standing out, and I'm going to hold it right up against the edge, and I'm going to come along with my scissor and I'm going to cut them off. Who would think you'd be cutting an eggshell with scissors? So now my edge is perfectly straight and I'm able to paint the surface. So might as well do this one too. So you see these are pieces of eggshell are sticking out. I'm going to cut them off. If you found your edge was very jagged still, and you felt like it was rough, you could actually take a piece of sandpaper or an emery board to smooth it off, but it looks fine to me. Let me just move these eggshells out of the way. And I always work on top of a board so I can easily get things to the trash. So now I'm going to show you a little bit about alcohol ink. If you were buying alcohol ink in a store like Hobby Lobby or Michael's, the Adirondack brand is the brand you're probably going to see the most. It is by Tim Holtz. It comes in packs of 3 like this, or it can also come singly online. But mostly in the craft stores, you buy them as a package of 3. And so he tries to put together 3 different colors. So it might be something you buy if you have the coupon, the 40% off coupon, and you buy a set of 3 and try them out. See if you like them. The interesting thing about alcohol ink is that it is a dye-based ink that the dye is suspended in alcohol solution, and it is only used on non-porous surfaces. So it's not something you're going to paint on paper with unless you buy specifically plastic paper. This is Yupo paper, and if you find you love the alcohol ink, you can do paintings like this one I did. I haven't done a lot of alcohol ink, but you actually can do the painting right on plastic. So it works perfectly well on tile. So I'll put a piece of tile here underneath my work because it cleans perfectly with alcohol. So you cannot make a mistake. So here's a couple that I did the other night, and to show you the variety of different colors, what different colors might look like. I thought this one kind of looked like the earth, so I might show you that when I put the sealer on. But let's just pick a couple colors out. I'll pick out a purple and a green and a blue. And you could apply your color with something like an eyeshadow sponge like this. You could use a Q-tip like this. You could use a paintbrush, or you can use it directly out of the jar. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just, I will do this one, and I'm going to just, let's see, what is that blue? I think I'm going to grab this brighter blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just dot this ink on here in a few different places. Doesn't look like much, but you use a very, very little bit of this ink. And I'm going to add some plum. And that's kind of a fuchsia color. So see, I think I'm going to try a little green and just see how they get together. You can then spritz some alcohol on there, which actually will make the ink move. Or the other thing that I have is alcohol blending solution, and the blending solution, you'll see what it does when I put it on. So it will cause these colors to basically blend and start to talk to each other. So we'll see what happens. It's kind of a mystery what's going to happen. And one of the things I should have said is you probably want to put gloves on when you're working with alcohol ink because it will stain your hands. And you know, you can try to avoid it, but I'm going to try to put the gloves on right now before I touch this further. I found that at this point you could move things around with your Q-tip, but something that works well is to take a piece of saran wrap and just ball it up. And touch it. So it kind of got a little muddy up there on the top where those colors got together in a bad way. Now, if you don't like what they did, you can remove some of that color. I'm removing some of that color because I'm not crazy about it. You could use a little bit of alcohol to make that happen, or you could just come back and add some more color. I think I'm just going to try another blue and see what that does to brighten up that area. But you see, this alcohol ink is kind of a mystery what it's going to do. And I am new at it, but I have been pretty happy with most of my results. So I might add that green again and see. So I'm going to just put this to the side and see what that does. So here's an instance of one that I made the other night. That is these greens. I'm going to just take, I'm going to put this on the side. I'm just going to take a piece of, I put some rubbing alcohol in a little spray bottle, and I'm just going to wipe that off so I don't create any issues. And maybe I'll do another one. I'm going to put a little blue. And this is a very pretty color blue. And you'll think about your color mixing. If you put some yellow near your blue, you know you're going to end up with some green, right? Because these colors will mix like any other colors would. And you don't know, you're not sure what I'm going to get. And let's see, I'm going to try another, a very dark blue. So this is the part where you could really play. And I would suggest what you might want to do is play with your colors beforehand on a tile, which is the best place to do it. And you'll see what goes well together. I'm just kind of randomly picking up colors and seeing what they do. So using my Q-tip, moving some of that color around. If there's a little too much of one, you can remove that color. So as you can see, each one is going to come out differently. I have seen these on Etsy for sale, and the people are using just one color, which I find that a little bit boring. I actually like to see some different colors play together and see what they do together. So, you know, you do what you like, do what appeals to you. I'm going to move this off to the side. And now I'll show you what I use to put a glossy finish on. If you were looking to put a shine on your finished piece, like I have here on this one, you can still see the shape of the shells, almost like an alligator type of thing. But it makes a really nice sealer on it. Two things you could use for sealing would be either Glossy Accents by Ranger. It's the same company that makes the alcohol ink, or Dimensional Magic by Mod Podge. And I have to say, I keep these things upside down in a jar like this all the time so that the air stays up here, because you don't want bubbles to show up in your work, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up. I usually take a piece of paper or some surface and just make a little bit of a dot just to make sure there's no air at the bottom. And now I will show you what it looks like when you put it on. So I'm going to avoid that hole where I know I'm going to put the jump ring. And it's okay if it does happen to fall in there. Before your gloss is entirely dry, I will come back and put a needle through there or a pin just to open up that hole. And I'm going to flood this surface with this this is Dimensional Magic by Mod Podge. And I'm going to go right to the edge and let this dry, and it'll dry with this beautiful glossy top coat. And I would say don't touch this for probably, you really want to touch it. I know you want to touch it in one day, but I'd say give it a good 2 days before you touch this, because it will get your fingerprint on it and you will only blame yourself that you couldn't wait to know if it was completely dry. It will appear to be completely dry, but it won't be, probably for 2 whole days. It's quite a thick coat, and it does a very, very nice job. I know there are some other things on the market. I've tried the Judykins Diamond Glaze. That's another one that's very good, but some of them are not as good as these, and I gotta say, these are very, very good. I don't see any air bubbles here. I thought I might get an air bubble. If I did get an air bubble, I would come back with a pin and I would just drag the air bubble right off the edge. All right, so I'm just going to go back to this one for a minute and say, if you don't like how it came out, you can spritz it with alcohol. You can remove some of the color, and literally, it already looks better. That was kind of ugly looking, because I wasn't really paying attention to what my choices were. I think that already looks 100 times better. So I have a bottle left from an old product that I had. So don't throw away things like this, because it comes in handy to spritz something like water or alcohol on your art projects. I know they sell bottles like this in Hobby Lobby that are empty, but you have plenty of products that come in bottles like this. A lot of the hand sanitizer is coming in bottles like this, so I wouldn't throw it out. Clean it out well, and you could use this with alcohol, or if you needed to spritz something with water as well. So that looks 100 times better to me. So I hope that you enjoyed this class. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that you would want to know about it. I think I've covered the topic from start to finish. And so if you have any further questions, I'm at the library, I'm at headquarters. You can always shoot me a question. My email is on the description of this class. And I thank you so much for coming today. I'm going to try to look here and see if there's any other things that I say. I don't see any other questions right now. If you have a question that comes up, put it underneath this post and I'll get back to you. Thanks so much for coming to my class. I really appreciate it, and it's big fun, and I hope you try this eggshell mosaic. You know, they say things that are broken, when they heal, they're stronger at the broken parts. So if you have a broken heart or you have a broken egg, you make the best of it. So have a good day, and thanks so much for coming. Bye-bye.